Good evening, everyone. It's Uncle Funky Larry Jones, and a couple of facts we found out from 2020. The CDC has reported that the overall suicides are down in America, but an increase of 5.5 in African Americans. So that happened over the last 2 years, and I'm with a tremendous group of individuals tonight as we talk about why. Why does this happen? And we are here tonight courtesy of the 100 Black men of Metropolitan Houston to talk about suicide prevention and mental health awareness. And I'd like to introduce some of these fabulous people to you tonight. Dr. Justin Washington, president of 100 Black men of Metropolitan Houston. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
All right. Then we have Vaughn O'Neill, licensed clinical social worker and psychologist. Good evening, Vaughn. Good to see you, sir.
Too.
All right. Jamal Johnson. He and I have been linked together in so many events across the city. It's just absolutely fabulous. This is a brilliant young man, and he is the president-elect of the 100 Black Men. Welcome, sir. Darnell Joseph, what can I say? Chairman Emeritus. We've been together for almost as long as this group has been here in the city. Great man, has had the opportunity to be with us on several occasions, and Darnell, always a pleasure, friend.
Good to be here.
Thank you, man. Last but not least, the beauty and the bunch of beasts tonight, if you will. Dr. Kai Lang.
So I'm an executive coach for my business, Emotions Embrace. So I focus on emotional intelligence and emotional health.
So, Vaughn, our first question is for you. Why are the numbers increasing? And can you shed a little light on that for us?
Yeah, so there hasn't been a lot of research on why the numbers are increasing. So I would have to go on clinical experience and also what I've observed in the world. I think a lot of things have come to the surface, particularly for Black folks over the past few years. Of course, you all know we had all these events of 2020, the racial uprisings and protests and people getting out in the streets, but also people voting, people expressing to their legislators their disgust, their frustration with things that are going on. And so I think those worldwide events, and particularly those national events, have really come crashing down on a lot of folks, in addition to everything else that we have to deal with as Black folks. Right. And so I guess that's all coming to a head with the increase in suicides.
Gotcha. Jamal, this one's for you. With this increase, we know that suicide prevention starts with mental health, but we also know that there's a stigma within our community. We don't like to talk about mental health. We don't like to go to the doctor, especially our Black men. What's your take on that, sir?
You said it. We don't like to go to the doctor, and oftentimes when we do go, our visit is in the emergency room. We've always had to be strong. Right? I believe that that's one of the reasons why the stigma is there, is because society doesn't give us space to be vulnerable. As a Black man, you better not take that cape off. Every day when you leave out of that house, you need to be Superman. And in some cases, some homes aren't even vulnerable enough for you to come in and take the cape off. So when you live with that pressure on you, who can you turn to? Who can you talk to? You know, and so I made a statement before. I said that many of us are going to I'm good ourselves to death. If somebody asks you, how are you?
Repeat that again?
Yeah, many of us are going to I'm good ourselves to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody asks you, are you okay? Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm straight.
Yeah, I'm straight. Because of the fear of judgment, the fear of what other people may say and look down on you. But I'll say this and I'll pivot. Even when you look at that movie Superman, he played Clark Kent the majority of the movie. He only had to put the cape on when it was time to save the day.
Come on, man.
So it's okay for you to take that cape off and go and get it when needed. And then when you take that cape off, go and get some help when needed.
You can be vulnerable.
You can be vulnerable.
It's
yes,
okay to cry.
Yes, sir.
And Funky, I want to
Yes, sir.
add something to that. As the old man of the group, you know, a part of our community had a bad history with the medical arena.
Oh, yeah.
So that is passed down from generation to generation of that you cannot trust.
Right.
So that older black man, still in that mindset of, I can't trust to go there. So then that passes down to his 50-year-old son, that 30-year-old son, and that's where you're right. We're not talking about it. And so one of the big objectives of tonight is to start that conversation, to continue that conversation. But the big picture is, and Jamal is right, JT is right, that then that became, we gotta be good. Because if we went, they didn't feel safe. And that's a real situation. And we don't talk about that, so we need to change that mentality as much as possible.
And historically,
Yeah.
that pressure of being the man,
Yes, sir.
not crying, not showing any emotion. I'm the breadwinner. I got to do for mama now, or I'm that guy. Has been beat up in the system.
Yeah, and I don't want to, get too philosophical in this conversation. But one of the things that I think that we really have to address is that we never really got any therapy once we left the plantation.
Come on, man. Yep.
Yeah.
It's like you get an announcement, especially down south. We already get the announcement 2 years later. And so then now we're just trying to figure out life. So what do I do with my hands? And while you were on that plantation, you couldn't show feelings. You couldn't be vulnerable.
You weren't allowed.
You weren't allowed to. So then when you leave from that plantation, nothing has been done to help you reprogram your thoughts. So then now the only thing that you can do is to continue to communicate what you have had access to. And so when we think about it, and we think about slavery, and we think about that being 500-600 years ago, man, my grandfather grew up on a plantation, right?
We're only three
Right.
generations
Right.
away from that.
Right.
And we really don't push that out there.
Yes,
Everybody wants to keep it quiet.
Right.
But the bottom line is, my grandfather, well, my father, which I didn't realize until about 6 months ago, picked cotton.
Wow.
So the bottom line is, there's a whole lot that we don't talk about.
Right.
And it all goes into the mental health piece.
Dunner, you're leading us right to our next. So, Dr. Washington, I'll let you answer this, and anyone else as we chimed in, but we've just pretty much led to our next question. What are some of the other barriers that our people face when it comes to seeking our services and our help?
So one big thing that I've seen is access, right? If you're having a medical crisis, where do you go? Who do you turn to? A lot of dads aren't in the homes anymore, so young men can't go to their dads. They feel like they have to do it themselves. We've seen Kanye West's, medical, experience play out for the world to see, and we just see the crisis part. We don't see the prevention, the help, the access part. So we're like, if he doesn't know where to go when he's a billionaire, where do we go, right? So as we continue to look in our faith-based institutions and organizations like the 100 Black Men or similar youth groups, it's like that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have those conversations. Because if we say iron sharpens iron, I need to be able to lean on him if I'm having a bad day. Hey man, this is something that's going on.
And trust.
Right, and trust that whatever I'm telling you is going to
And
stay there.
trust.
Right.
Because a lot of us, yours truly included, severe trust issues.
Yeah.
And it's taken a while to rub all that off,
Yeah.
to get to another level of who do you trust, because you look like me, and
Right.
you're brown, and
Right.
you got a doctor in front of your name, and
Yeah.
you went to this school and that school, and one of the highest HBCUs, and you went on and on and on, and then my bill comes and it's $100,000 higher than another folk.
Right.
What is that?
Right.
So
Right.
we still have some barriers, but
Oh,
go ahead.
if I may, I want to add something to that because, as we talk about access and as we're talking about stigma, we all know that the medical field has not always been kind to Black folks. It's not always been a welcoming place, and Dr. Lang, you can probably add to this also, but the mental health field in particular has not really been welcoming. And I share this with my clients all the time, psychology is an Anglo-European science. We, as practitioners, if we are good at it, I should say, we have to find a way to kind of breathe our culture into that science. Because lots of my clients have talked about, they've tried therapy before, but it wasn't with someone that looked like them. And they've had some pretty bad experiences. And now some of the things they would tell me, I'm like, wait a minute, this was my colleague. She said that? She said maybe you're being a little too sensitive?
Wow.
Are you sure you're not just being a little too angry about something that's not really a big deal? Wait a minute. This is a psychological professional that said that. And so lots of folks now are coming out of the woodwork. And I would say this has been happening a lot since 2020. And so that access issue, our people are looking for people that look like them. They are now more willing to go to therapy, and they want someone that looks like them.
Thank you, Bob. So, Dr. Lane, we have this thing. You've heard the guys talk about, if you want to chime in on the resources available, but also like to get your take on social media and how that is affecting mental status, the need to be seen, the need to get all these hundreds of thousands of likes to like me, and you don't even know me. I need your comments, but you don't even really know me. I don't even look like the picture that's on here. What a farce.
Yeah. So great question. We're living in a social media world, which is a lot different than we talk about our parents. And some of us, even before, I won't say before internet, but before, I don't go that far.
I'm here.
Before the Facebook, before the Instagrams. And so I think a lot of times for social media, we look to that for validation. And so when we are seeking out validation from external factors, you're constantly trying to evolve to meet an unrealistic expectation. And so if that, for some people that looks different, right? So that could mean, your financial status, what you're showing as far as your physical appearance and how you may be adjusting that to, compare yourselves to others. And the reality is, 9 times out of 10, what people are posting isn't reality in itself, right? So it really can weigh on how you view yourself, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, how you show up, and really prevents you from being your most authentic, genuine self.
But I think Jamal hit it. He said back to that.
That's Superman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I gotta be good.
Right. And there was a study that was done at Oxford University said that we're living in the most depressed time ever. I just want you to think about that. Like, we literally had a time that was called the Great Depression.
True.
And we're more depressed now than they were then. And so their depression was wrapped around survival. They woke up every day not knowing if that was going to be their last day. We're depressed because somebody didn't like or share our photo, or we're trying to keep up
with the Joneses.
We keep up with the Joneses, and we're trying to keep up with their ESPN highlight reel.
Right.
Because nobody's showing the fumbles, nobody's showing the flag plays. Everybody's showing the Hail Mary touchdown to win the game. And so then you wake up every day thinking that if I am not living in that, because life is not a 15-second reel on TikTok. Life is lived throughout the day. And so if you can catch a snapshot of a great moment in your day, you're winning. And so many of us, even many of us just looking at the world, if we really understood where we rank throughout the world, even some of us who are not making what others are making, we're still in probably the top 25% in the world. But then if we're gauging ourselves and we're comparing ourselves to those people that we see who are only showing us their best, then now we're putting ourselves in a place where, Vaughn, we're going to need you more than ever for a preventable reason.
Yeah, I was about to ask one, how can you correlate on what Jamal just mentioned about this whole mental thing of being, ta-da, I'm that guy.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's a continuation of that whole Superman persona, where we got to be on all the time, and we got to be at our best and living our best life and all this other stuff that gets promoted on social media. And it wears on the soul after a while. And we're seeing that a lot in younger folks. Your teenagers and your younger 20s that are always on social media, and they grew up on social media. And so that's what they base their expectations for themselves on, because they think that's what everyone else around them is doing.
Dr. Lang, so your clients, any of this relate?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one common theme that I hear a lot is, and I'm just gonna say it, as far as my black male clients,
Right.
how do I not be the angry black man?
Mm.
How do I not be perceived that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm gonna open up a whole can
Yeah, that's-
of words here.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for me as their coach, I really have to sit and really reflect in what is this person experiencing and how can I create that safe space for them to have those difficult conversations.
Dr. Lane, you're sitting next to a former #1 all-world angry black man.
Oh, no, all right.
Yeah, and it came after my second divorce. And I learned some things that what I was married to was not what was shown to me those 5 years before. It was a shock to the system. Because this relationship, you know, at that point of manhood, he became the responsible guy. I'm gonna do the right thing. I'm not running around. You know, I'm settled now. I'm gonna be truthful to this woman of mine. And I had the script just flipped right up in front of me. I'll go into some ugly details because it was crazy. Hid a cocaine habit that I didn't know she had. Embezzlement. Was threatening my only daughter, not her biological, my biological. Let's see, and was really living a charmed life, if you will. I was the morning show host of probably one of the most successful morning shows in the city of Houston ever, and the world was her oyster, so was the checkbook. And I learned that she ran numbers and did things, and I said, I saved this much money when I got it all. So the story is full of all kinds of thorns and craziness. But trauma. I'll say truthfully, 1997, I was traumatized. And had not been for the good Lord and my mama, what little mind I have, I probably would have lost. But there was some acting out. There was and I'm gonna say this for the camera, there was a meditated plan of murder. Premeditated murder, he thought.
Wow.
Had a .357 Magnum ready to go after going to a remote for the old Toys R Us. Ran into HPD officers out. We'll always give props to Butch Grant, who literally saved my life because he talked me down off that ledge. But in my mind, I was that man. As a matter of fact, Doctor, I was leaving the house to go to the remote, and there was a point when I walked from the kitchen to the garage that I went cold. And I'm not that guy. I'm all love. There's no hate in me at all. But I went cold. And I'm like, Doc, this is not you. But I had the gun in my bag, and when I came back from the remote, I was gonna blow her brains out. So I thought. The whole crew that day was like, Doc, what is wrong? I said, man, Butch pulled me to the side. He said, sit down and talk to me. What's going on? So I ran the whole scenario. And he said, first of all, give me the gun. I said, no, Doc, I'm going. And I'll give me the gun. I said, why? He said, first of all, you're not cut out for Huntsville. Because that's where you go. You're going straight. You haven't thought through anything. I said, yeah, man, I'm going to knock it down. I'm going to put the pillow, some scenario I watched on some TV show, right? I'm going to blow her brains out. And he said, and then what? I said, I'm going to feel great. He said, yeah, you're going to be great. Hauled right off to jail, and that's going to be the end of you and this career and your child. So Butch Grant became my immediate therapist in the moment because I was not all crazy, but I was very angry. All right, very angry. It was the most difficult time I've ever been through. It's also on page 64 in the book. What do you do when the funk hits the fan?
Wow.
But I'll throw that up. It's just a man to man, and this is what I love about the 100 Black Men in Metropolitan Houston tonight, that connection. There was a guy that hit me. that you could relate to. And that's what we
And,
do.
and that's that key. That's one of the things that we talk about, and being 100, and being that other, you know, I showed a clip of a movie called The 300 at a meeting we just had, and that's brothers leaning on each other's shield, having those conversations, because like the next question, sometimes it's just, how you doing, man?
Yeah.
What's going on? And then because some of us, in a collective information, I've been there more times than you have.
Yeah.
I didn't have the big wheel that you had,
Yeah.
but I've been there 4 times.
Yes, sir.
And what I've learned was, if the values are not the same, nothing works. But what happens is, if I can call Justin,
Yeah.
so we were just talking about this. If me, you, and him have these issues, what do you think about the normal, this guy who's just
Yeah.
going to work every day?
Right.
And we're part of an organization where I can make a phone call to a doctor.
Right.
Or, hey man, I just need to have a conversation, sit down. And so that's why we've got so much more where, oh, I'm gonna kill them, I'm gonna kill myself,
Right.
I'm just going to be done with it, because they have no conversation and no way out.
Right.
So when we started talking about this conversation, it's imperative, and on a national level, 100 Black Men is gonna start having this conversation, because it's us. Now, on top of COVID, we already don't get heard. And a lot of people feel like they don't get heard. Okay, our community, politically,
Yeah.
we don't move like we should, so we don't get heard. Community, the doctors, you say we don't have access, we don't get heard. So, Funky, if you could have called me, I'd have said, hey man,
Yeah.
there's some more out there, forget that, let's go.
As soon as I learn how to stop being mad.
Hey, hold on.
Yeah.
I'd have come pick you up, period.
Yeah.
We going someplace else.
Oh, it,
Because the bottom line is, that's who we're supposed to be for each other.
yeah.
You know, and forget that. Because we've got guys in our organization gone through divorces. And hey man, what's going on? Show up at this meeting. Doesn't matter what you got going on, show up. But because the broad community does not have that structure, that's why we're sitting here with you tonight.
And think of the lack of connectivity nowadays.
Yeah.
Everything is text message, social media responses back and forth.
Come on.
Nobody even picks up the phone and calls anybody anymore.
Yeah.
If it's not a text, there's no communication. They're not getting together and going out like we used to back in the day, right? So that lack of connectivity, I honestly believe, is a huge part of the reason they don't feel like they have anybody.
Right. And oftentimes, people live in their silos, right?
Yep.
And so then now when you live in your silo, your world becomes magnified. Because to your point, you said, well, Larry, you could have called me. I've been there before. But in that moment, you were in your world. Right?
So
And so in that moment, your world was crumbling. And so you didn't even consider anybody else's world. Is there somebody else that I know that have gone through this? But going back, Vaughn, to that Superman mentality
And the trust thing.
and the trust
You've
thing.
already had it. If you haven't had a relationship with me and know that you can trust me, you're not gonna call me.
Right.
But now, if you've been around me and we've hung out with,
Sure,
hey,
dropped it
you
off.
got me, I got you, then you're going to call me and say, hey man, this is what I feel like.
Right.
Because I've had some brothers, and
Yeah.
a couple of mine, I'm like, hey man,
Right.
this is what I feel like. He says, meet me here tomorrow. Done.
So, something you just said, hey man, this is what I'm feeling. That's a critical part to even embrace your emotion and acknowledge it. And I think there's so many missed opportunities for us to feel that, either whether it's trauma, it could be something minor, it could be something significant. And then we want to put it in what I call the invisible backpack of burden, right? And we just hold on to it for life, right? To the point where now you're just angry or frustrated and you don't even know why. You don't know which bag of marbles it is that's triggering you to react in a certain way, right? So the more that we can change the relationship that we have with our emotions, both the good things and the bad thing, and learn from them, then the more opportunities we can have those difficult conversations and reach out to others.
And given those trigger words, identify.
Yeah.
Being able to give our brothers and sisters words or thoughts that they can identify that say, hey, you know what? I heard that. This is what I'm going through. This is what I need to have. I need to make a phone call to somebody. And so thank you, Funky, to have this, and and you know, making sure that this is heard on your show. So, you know, I think the bottom line is this has to happen a lot more,
Right.
you know, and in a broader format as well, you know, as much as possible, because if we don't, you know,
Because, and to your point, if we don't have this conversation more than just this one time, right? It'll be another twitch that'll happen. And then we'll be forced to have it then, you know, because we are some good reactionary people. It's like every hashtag, you know, we're known to come together. But the thing about it is we very seldom stay together. And that's where our power is, in staying together. So with these conversations, even with our kids, and I think you mentioned that, Vaughn, about how it's affecting our teenagers and our millennials and our Gen Xers, or Gen Zers, excuse me, Gen X, that was a generation before. But it's affecting them on a alarming rate, and everybody has the same thing. It doesn't matter the age, everybody has the same statement. They felt alone. They felt alone. And even in that moment, I think that expressing the love, because I think it may be a tad bit too late in a sense to try to express the love when I'm on red alert. Right? So it's some proactive work that has to happen. And it's one thing that I taught a class at HPD, and I was talking to the officers, and I was telling them, and we was talking about building trust after traumatic experiences. And this was like right on the heels of George Floyd. And thankfully enough, I got a call today, they're bringing it back because they were saying that the new cadet classes, they're missing it. So we taught all of the old cops during that upheaval of George Floyd. But in that, I would always tell every class that it's hard for us not to feel trauma when we're pulled over by a cop, because when you approach us, the approach is just so But when you think about that, most black men, man, it's hard for us to walk in the grocery store and say, what's up? And when you think about that, when do you get to a point of having an open door for you to come to me and I to come to you if I won't even speak to you? You know, so those are some of the things, and again, I'm glad we're having this conversation, but as thought-provoking as this conversation is, and as empathetic as we are as the 100, there's still gonna be a whole bunch of brothers that we're not gonna be able to meet. So then there are gonna have to be some peer-to-peer opportunities that you may not be able to get to your pastor, you may not be able to get to a brother that's in the organization, but you got you one, you know?
I'm believing and trusting that whomever's watching this, that seed that is going to fall and plant and do what we need to do. We've kind of talked about the discrimination and racism in a little way, but in our own world of getting better and living in one of the most diversified cities on the planet, are we better with our brothers and sisters, or stand still, or worse in terms of interaction, sharing information, being a part of, or do we even need? Or we no longer want to be invited to the table, we just build our own table and take care of our own neighborhood. Or can we do that?
That's loaded.
I'm a great
It's
servant.
a lot in there.
I'm
It was a
a
lot in
great
that
servant,
question.
that's what I do.
There was a lot in there. I'll say this. I say after George Floyd, I think that we realized that blacks need to come together and try to find solutions for the problems that we have in our communities, right? We realize that we have our doctors, we have our therapists, right? We know that we need to, you know, with a lot of stuff that Charlamagne the God is doing, he's bringing a lot of that awareness. We realize now, like, hey, therapy, I might need it, my family member might need it, we all might have that crazy uncle, but it allows us now to have that conversation. Right, so we're now looking for that access, and as Vaughn said, we're looking for that access that looks like us, that might have a shared experience, so they know, you know, our background and where we come from. So when we say different slang words, they understand what it means and how to interpret. Right, so those are the kind of things that I think that we're moving more towards now. I think before we were just grasping at straws, right? We're trying to find anybody or whoever's out there, but now I think it's more intentional since that time.
Dr. Lang, we've not overlooked you, but I would like to get female's perspective on all of this in terms of being mama in a lot of households, also daddy, and that wear and tear on our women.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a loaded question. So, two things come to mind. Number one, as a mother of two small boys, when I talk about, and I think we kind of mentioned it earlier, it starts very young.
Yes.
That behavior of learning how to have that relationship with your emotions. When we tell our young boys, man up and stop crying and those kind of things. And, because of the work that I do, I'm very aware and intentional not to do those things, right? To, if my boys are upset or crying, say, sit with them and say, tell me, what is it that you're upset about? What is the feeling or emotion that you're feeling? And, what's triggering you? What are you learning from that? And really having those conversations. So that way it doesn't become that habit, learned habit, to suppress it. And then it builds up. So when you're 20, 30, 40 years old and you still recovering or attempting to recover from the trauma that you had at 10,
Right.
then, it becomes that much more difficult.
See, I'm at an age, not to cut you off, but I didn't even know the word trauma existed, and I'm from that. And you called yourself the oldest at the table. I bet I'm older than you. I'm 70.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you got me. By a few years.
I'm 70. I'm 1953. Montgomery, Alabama, to add a little sauce on top of all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all of what you have spoken about, the expectation, the if you don't do it a certain way, going to the woodshed was not always about practicing your horn, it was about getting you behind
Oh, yeah.
to it,
Right,
so you
right.
didn't do.
Yes, sir.
Grandma, give me a switch, go to the rose bush, get the ones with the thorns. 'cause
Right.
Me. So I'm all over the place. Like I have low self-esteem because I didn't do well enough over here. I'm a dark-skinned brother, so I wasn't always accepted because I got that going on. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. My dad had a doctorate in sociology, taught psychology at Alabama State University, went on to be the first black executive secretary for the National Education Association in Washington, D.C. We were in Prince George's County when it was 80% white.
Wow.
Give you an idea of what I went through. So,
Right.
come here, Black Sambo. Where you from Alabama? Where's your banjo? Where's your watermelon? I dare you to tell me who said that. The suburban black kids I went to school with. Not anybody white.
Wow.
I was never called the N-word till I got to Charles Carroll Junior High School in New Carrollton, Maryland, which was 80% white, but it wasn't a white kid that called me that.
Wow.
It was a black kid.
And now, a piece of your question asks about how are we as a people, right? I think we still got a ways to go. And the reason why I say that is because everybody, just because you're African American, every African American problem is not experienced by everybody.
Right.
Now, to every other culture, you black.
Right.
I don't care if you drive a BMW or you're on the bus line, you're black.
Always.
But now inside of our community, right, we kind of show that we've excelled a little bit and we kind of look down upon. And so when that happens, there's no way that there can be unity. One of the most peaceful times that we had where there was unity was on the heels of seeing a black man have a knee on his neck on national TV, on social media.
Sir.
And then at that point, it's like, man, we linked on, and
Right.
because even Dr. King, Dr. Bernice King said, I actually hate when the celebration of his birthday comes along. She said, because many of the people that would have hated my dad are now celebrating it. And she said, and I'm not just talking about white folk.
Right.
I'm talking about black people too. And so I believe that when we can ever get to that point, I don't want to get preachy, but I think if we could ever get to that point where you really are my brother, you really are my brother. when I see you as my brother, man, there's certain things that I'm not gonna let you go through because you're my brother. That's personal.
Yeah.
But as long as we're separated by classism, by how much money we make, the schools that we went to, as long as that continues to be in between us, we'll always be divided. And we will have to wait until there is another catastrophe for us to come back together.
I want to jump in on this because I think we're getting there, Jamal.
Yes, sir.
You know, Black Wall Street was created out of necessity.
Yes, sir.
We had to go to each other to be able to build this new community. Now we're no longer in slavery. We're gonna, look to our own and build our own and all that. As integration came in, and all of a sudden, we want to be as close as we can to white folks. We want to do what white folks have not allowed us to do. We want to do what they're doing. We want to be around them and all that. And I think we're getting away from that. I think we have realized that we actually do need each other,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't matter if I got out of a BMW right next to you, standing next to the bus stop. We are all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the rise of everybody referring to each other as king and queen. Looking to African things and wanting to patronize Black businesses and things like that. There's more of an interest in that and more of an interest in building our own because we, this realization we really can only depend on each other.
That's it.
And that's what we need to do. I think that realization is now becoming the
And we're on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing that, and Funky, you asked, is it time for us to build our own? Yeah, it is, and we've started that. Some of the things that we started doing at 100, we started partnering with other organizations, NAACP, Urban League,
Good.
Houston Businesses' Chamber of Commerce, and starting to work in unison and go after singular efforts. We're not going to cross what each other's responsible for, but the bottom line is, it is time for us to, do business with each other. And we're not saying we don't do business outside of us,
Correct, yeah.
but we need to make sure that we're doing business with each other. And the way we do business, and it's sad, which we need to change, is if I get mad at you, I'm not doing business with you anymore.
Right.
But go to the man down the street and continue to go back to him, even though I'm mad as I don't know what.
Right.
So we need to have these conversations to continue to push it. So I'm going to help my brother learn how to do business. And I need to learn how to do business. I don't go to him and ask him for a 10% off. I just need to go do business.
Right. Stop trying to get the hook.
You see what I'm saying? Hey, if you paying,
Right.
just give me the service,
Yeah.
the quality service that's responsible for that number, and let's move forward. And then we become a community self-sufficient.
And Darnell, to your point, we've all been exposed to so many other things that when I receive that service, that tip or that extra comes naturally because I'm going to say thank you
Yeah.
for your being on time or staying late or I noticed where you cleaned up a particular area or my car was serviced and vacuumed. Who does that?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of conversations or services, I believe.
Yeah.
The 100's gonna be all apart. But Doc, I don't want to leave you out again, Doc. But you hit me, but you didn't hit me, because I want to know about Mama. Because see, I was a single dad.
Okay.
After all of the other trauma, I got my kid, and at age 9, 10, I'm single dad until she graduated from United Flight School and has chosen United for a career for the last 8 years. So I want to know about Mama. I want to know about Mama who can help fix the world, but who fixes Mama? Doc, Lane.
I think it just proves that we all need our community.
Yes, ma'am.
We all need to have that safe space. I keep saying that safe space because I think Vaughn mentioned it earlier that sometimes when people have that one bad experience, whether it's with a therapist, a coach, a mentor, then it's like, that's it, I'm done, I'm out.
Right.
I'm never doing this again. I tried it, I'm out. We have to keep trying to find that connection, that person that you trust, because they are out there.
Yeah.
So don't let one person discourage you. So knowing that you have that community, like 100 Black Men or whatever other resources, whether it's for men or for females, because to your point, women are helping to raise the young men too,
Without a doubt.
right? And to your point, some of which are single moms.
Yeah.
So we need a community, we need that support system, and we need to learn from each other and how to navigate those traumatic experiences.
We are, well, at least I am, a mama's boy for life. You know, it was, I love my dad. I mean, he was around, but Ms. Rose Helen asked for anything.
Yeah.
It was mama first, and you know, I'll see y'all later.
Well, as it should be.
Right.
And I concur, Doctor. I concur. So before we leave tonight, to the table, to our panel, what about resources? Anyone who's watching this, do you have any numbers or places that you can go, your own businesses or people that you know that can help anyone who needs this with suicide prevention and mental health? And Dr. Lang, we'll start with you first.
Of course. So there's two resources that I often use with my clients. The first one, I really like NAMI. It's NAMI .org. And they're a great resource for information, education as far as suicide prevention, advocacy, those kind of things. Another resource is something that actually we talked about technology that you can use on your phone to call or text, and that number is 9888. And so, you know, similar how we have 911, it's 988. So that's actually a new resource that was created in 2020. Where it's pretty much used in crisis for suicide, mental health crisis situations. So those are two resources that I would definitely recommend.
No, I'm gonna tee it up to Vaughn.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. I have a few. So we'll start with some therapist finder websites. Psychology Today at psychologytoday.com. Also Mental Health Match at mentalhealthmatch.com. Those are probably the top places to look for a therapist. And also particularly for our folks, the Boris L. Henson Foundation. Boris L. Henson, that's Taraji P. Henson's dad. She created this website, created this foundation in honor of her father. And so that's Boris L. Henson, Henson, foundation.org. They offer lots of resources, including their own therapist finder. There. Also, for free and confidential support groups right here in the Houston area, Remind, you can go to remindsupport.org. Like I said, they have free and confidential support groups all over the city of Houston, both in person and virtually. And then lastly, I'll just go ahead and put my own plug out there. Hit me at CenterPath. The name of my business is CenterPath Counseling, and that's CENTRE Path, which is all one word. So catch me on CenterPath on Instagram, and you'll be able to go from there. You can also find me on Psychology Today.
Ma'am, gentlemen, any final words as we bring this to a close on what I think will be a monumental first for the 100? Anything you want to add?
We definitely just want to make sure that everybody gets the services that they need, right? I know, like Vaughn, I know, what you do, it's so necessary, right? We need to stop living in silos and stop trying to figure, especially as men and me, I'm speaking to myself as I say this, stop living in a silo thinking that you got it all figured out and you can handle everything by yourself, right? When you're taking care of family and kids and businesses and corporations and all that other stuff that goes with it, you need your brother, right? Whoever that is, whoever your confidant is that you can trust, right? Trust was a good key word. Find someone you can trust and talk it out, right?
And I'm glad we're moving in, or we are in the age where technology can be more of a benefit
Absolutely.
than a hindrance, right? And the services are there. I want to thank y'all.
Thank you.
And I think the last thing, be intentional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be intentional about finding that person, that safe space. As 100, I have this saying, if you're 100, you're never broke and you're never alone.
Yeah.
Say that again, sir.
If you're 100, you're never
Never
broke and you're never alone.
All right.
And that means you're supposed to make a phone call. When you think and you feel alone, you make that phone call to whoever. There's going to be a brother out of the however many we have that's going to pick up the phone and say, what's up? So be intentional about getting engaged, getting involved. Because a lot of times, if you're engaged and involved in other organizations or other things, and I'll tell you like this, you may think your situation is bad.
Yeah.
And then you have a conversation with somebody else and say, "Oh, let me go back to
Right.
let me think about what
Yeah.
is going on."
Or you
But
think
if
you're
in
the
that
only
silo,
one going through that thing.
You're the
That's
one.
the thing. Yeah.
you know, and then you meet me down the street, dude. I just come from there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't know that because we're not having that conversation. You're not engaged in that circle.
Right.
So get into those circles. Get into, that organization or that something outside of your silo.
So you've heard a lot of great comments tonight, and oh, by the way, I had two rather. I'm in the absolute last marriage. God
Don't worry
bless
about
prayer
it. I
and
thought you
real.
didn't hear that.
Well, I heard you.
You didn't say nothing about it, so I'm leaving it alone.
What I do for a living is
Right.
this. I heard that. No, but I waited for this time because it was good to know. Just like he said, you're not alone. Whatever you take from this tonight, or this afternoon, or whenever you see this, first of all, it's with our sincere hearts that we mean everything we say. We're open. The one word that my bishop would always use is that we're compassionate. These men and women are compassionate about the things that they want to help you with, the services. As we started this is not really about us personally. It's about you who may need this, and we're nervous or scared or just didn't know what to do. So you've seen this. You have access to Wi-Fi. You have the internet, so it's real easy. 100 Black Men, HOU.org. 100 Black Men, HOU.org. Trust and believe, your uncle. Been around for 50 years. I'll be around for another 50. I'm never gonna lie to you. All right. On behalf of the People Station, Magic 102.1, I want to say God bless you. Thank you for being a part of this into the 100. God bless you forever, and thank you so much for